Am I on?
You're on.
Hello, I'm Kristine. I've been with Wildcare for 30 years. I became their bunny person because I noticed that there weren't a lot of people that were really comfortable doing bunnies. So I taught myself how to do it, and I've been doing it for a very long time. I'm not sure where to begin.
Why rabbits? Why did you start
rabbits?
rehabilitating rabbits?
I was told that rabbits are really challenging, and they weren't done in the clinic. There were always rehabbers out of the clinics that were doing them, and there wasn't a lot of people that wanted to do them because they're such sensitive animals. So I said, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. So I just studied and learned everything I could about the Eastern Cottontail, their diet, their habits, how to care for them, and I just learned as I went. So I'm not sure what else to add to that.
So did you need to have any kind of special training in order to start doing this, and where do you take care of them?
I just learned at the time, this was a while ago, I got all the information I could, papers. We didn't have the internet back then, but I just learned, and then I started with the basic formula, and I haven't changed it since. It's worked. So what happens is I'll get a phone call, a nest has been disturbed by dogs or landscapers, and I'll bring them to my home. And I have a nice quiet shed out in my backyard with electricity in it, which is good. And I have a sunroom out back. So those are my 2 bunny nurseries. And I'll bring the bunnies in, and I'll put them in a little aquarium and with hay, and put them on a heating pad, and keep them nice and quiet because they need to be quiet. They're very stressed animals, so they need a nice quiet area. I nurse them with my special formula when their eyes are still closed, and then I wean them onto greens, and then once they're weaned onto greens, they get acclimated outdoors and go into carriers, and then they're released actually very young. They're released between 3 and 4 weeks of age usually, once they show me that they are self-feeding and afraid of people. A lot of times they do not survive. It's not an animal that is really hardy in some ways. They're very delicate. Flora and fauna of their systems makes them very, very sensitive. So I got used to them dying pretty quickly. So but I do have good release. Usually 60% of my babies will survive and be released back into the wild. I'm not sure what else I should.
So can anyone do this, or is this something that you need to be licensed or trained in Massachusetts?
You need to be licensed in the state of Massachusetts to have wild animals in your home. I do not recommend anybody try to raise orphaned cottontails. They're very, very, very hard to do. Most of them will die if you don't know what you're doing. They need to be handled very specifically, very gently. The home has to be quiet. There's a lot of factors that go into it. They're not like pet rabbits. You can't domesticate them. They don't want to be patted. They don't want to be played with. They're afraid of loud noises. They're afraid of all of our scents, all of our sounds. So it's not something that your average person should be doing because they're not going to have good success.
So if you're going out into the backyard, how would you know that you have a rabbit? Where do they normally nest, and what would you need to look for if you have pets, or if you're going to be doing some garden cleanup or some landscape work? What do you look for?
Well, bunnies nest in the weirdest places. They nest anywhere, and their nests are very, very camouflaged. So there's a good chance if you have a bunny nest in your yard or in your garden, you're not even going to see it. And that's the way the mother wants it. So there are holes in the ground. There'll be holes in a flower pot. We had a bunny nest last year in a fire pit. There's all kinds of really weird places. I don't know why the mother makes nests where she makes them, but they're all over the place, and they're very, very camouflaged, so you probably will not see it. A lot of times they'll be right in the middle of someone's grassy yard, and the grass is pulled over on top, and you have no idea they're there. So you just gotta look out. The mother will dig a hole. Sometimes it's shallow, sometimes it's deep. Mostly it's in between. She'll pull fur out of her breast, and she'll line a hole, and then she'll have her babies, and then she'll kind of cover it up with dried grasses, so they're very, very camouflaged. A lot of times lawnmowers will run over nests because you just don't see them, which is unfortunate. Sometimes dogs or cats will discover them and then dogs will usually be very curious and they'll want to dig them up, and we'll talk about that after. Sometimes cats will find them, but what I understand is that when the babies are in their nest and they're camouflaged, there's no scent in there. So, which is good because the predators aren't going to find them. The mother rabbit only nurses her babies twice a day, so she stays away from the nest. She's not supposed to be at the nest. So she'll lean over the nest, usually at sunup and sundown, dawn and dusk, and she'll nurse, and then she'll be on her way so that nobody knows that nest is there. But once the nest is discovered by human hands or a dog or whatever, then we start to get our scent in there, and that's when there can be trouble. So I'm not sure what else.
So
where to go
the
from
mother
there.
rabbit doesn't stay with
No,
the babies.
the mother rabbit does not stay with her babies. So if you find a nest in your yard, underneath a brush pile in your garden, and there's a hole and there's babies in there, the mother's not supposed to be there. She's off somewhere. She's not far away, but she's leaving them alone so that nobody sees them. So they may not be orphaned. They may be, but they may not be orphaned.
So how can you tell if they're orphaned? Are they warm? Are they going to survive? How can you tell when the mother isn't there all day long?
Well, what we tell people to do if they discover a nest or if their dog disturbs a nest, or if landscapers will dig up a nest, what we try to tell people to do is to put them back as quickly, as quietly as you can. Put them right back, cover them right up. Yep, wear gloves. Cover them back up as best you can and handle them as little as you can. And what we ask people to do is, I do sticks, but there's a tic-tac-toe method that can be done too. You can take 4 pieces of string, make a tic-tac-toe over the nest, or I've always just taken 2 sticks. If you don't have string, you take 2 sticks, put them in an X on top of the nest. Leave it there, stay away from it, and then if the mother comes back to nurse later in the day or whenever, the nest will be disturbed. That X or those tic-tac-toe strings will be moved. If it hasn't been disturbed within, say, 12 hours, then give Wildcare a call and we can help you out with that situation. When bunnies are newborn, like brand new newborn with hardly any fur left, it's really, really, really hard to save them. So we really try to keep them in the nest if possible. Really don't handle them. Handling them is not good if you can help it. I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have. Sometimes a mother will get hit by a car. Sometimes a mother will be taken by a predator. So, the moms may not come back, but they may come back. So it's just kind of a case-by-case thing. But that's what we suggest that you do. Put them back, make a tic-tac-toe or an X on top, and then call us if it has not been disturbed, like within 12 hours.
Can you ever move the nest?
No, I have never had any good experience moving a nest. I believe that the mom knows where they are, and then if they get moved, I don't think she's going to know where they are, and I think it would confuse her and there'll be a lot of scent on there. So I've never had any good experience with moving a nest. So no, not a good idea.
What are some suggestions to do if you have a nosy pet who's discovered the nest is there? Are there ways to deter them from getting into the nest? And I know they're only there a couple of weeks, so is that something that maybe people can try to avoid any contact with their pets during that time?
Yep, there's things that you can do. Try to keep your cats indoors if possible. I know it's hard sometimes, but try to keep your cats indoors. It's just safer for them and it's safer for wildlife. If you have a dog that gets into the nest, it happens all the time. I get calls all the time. If you could walk your dog in the area on a leash, that would be great. The bunnies are only going to be in that nest for maybe up to 2 weeks or so. If you can rearrange your schedule and walk the dog on a leash away from the nest, that would be perfect because the bunnies will eventually go. If that's not possible, there are different things you could put. There's like laundry baskets you can put on top of the nest. There's different things you can do. I think Wildcare had a video of that. Did Wildcare have a video of that, or is there a?
Yeah, if you look on our website, there is. We did an episode of Growing Up Wild, and Stephanie demonstrated some things that you can do to block that nest off while the dog is outside, as a temporary thing that you can just remove after the dogs are done doing their business outside, or just kind of keep a temporary fencing out there. There are some good suggestions on that video on our website.
Yeah, it's good to watch the video just because you kind of get an idea. It's easier to, it makes more sense when you see it than if I say. But there's definitely ways you can do it, but there are also some very persistent dogs that will not stay away, and I understand that. So if you cannot keep your dog away from a nest and you can't, and you've tried everything you can't, you can give Wild Care a call and we'll help you out with that situation. I've taken a lot of dog nests. I've taken a lot of nests that were disturbed by dogs because the owners have tried and tried, but they just can't keep their dog away.
So if a dog gets in there, if you see saliva on the bunny, but he seems okay otherwise, is there still, a threat to that bunny surviving? What should you do?
If your dog gets into a nest and he has one in its mouth or he's pawing around, it's a tough call. They're all different circumstances. I'm happy to come look myself because each situation is usually different. If they have saliva on them, we usually tell you to bring them to Wild Care because they've got the dog scent and you don't know if there's any injuries. I don't mind people calling me and asking me because, like I said, each case is so different. Some dogs are really gentle, some dogs aren't. Some bunnies are really, really scared animals and they'll freeze. So sometimes they'll just be sitting there. They'll be scared to death, so that you really can't tell if they're injured or not. So you can always call Wild Care if you have any questions, or call me and I can help you out because every situation is different. Sometimes people will video what happened or video the nest itself or the babies and then send me the video, and then I can kind of talk them through what I think is the best thing to do.
So when in doubt, give us a call.
Absolutely call. Don't hesitate to call. I'm happy to help. The people here are happy to help. We can answer any questions. Sometimes just seeing a picture will be able to tell us exactly what you need to know. That good?
Yes. So if you do end up having a rabbit that comes here for rehabilitation, what happens? How long are they here? What are they eating? What are you doing?
Well, when they come to me, if their eyes are still closed, they need to be nursed. So I put them in a little aquarium and I wrap them up really tight because they're used to being snug in the ground with their brothers and sisters. So I'll try to duplicate that and put them in a nice little nest. And I'll nurse them twice a day, just like the mother would. And then when they start to open their eyes, I put them in a little bigger cage, and they have hay on one side, and on the other side I'll put some greens, and they'll start to experience the world, open their eyes, look around, start to nibble clover. So I'll nurse them, and then they'll start nibbling too. And then after about a week or so, they'll get weaned onto greens. And then once they're weaned onto greens, then they go outside into bigger carriers where they get acclimated to the outdoors and to the sights and smells of Mother Nature. And then once they show me that they are scared, that they're healthy, that they're eating well, peeing, pooping good, I know it's time for them to go. And I don't keep them for very long because they're very stressed, they're very wild. They get very anxious. I can kind of tell when they're ready to go because they start to get restless. And then I know that keeping them in captivity is harmful, so that it's time for them to go. So then I go and I try to find suitable release spots, away from cats, away from roads, away from people as much as possible, places that have good cover, places where there's clover and nice grass, dandelions. The 6A side of the Cape has a lot of nice spots. And I let them go. And it's always bittersweet. I'm happy that they can go, but it's a sad, scary, dangerous world for bunnies out there, so I just give them a second chance. That's the story.
Great. Well, thank you for doing what you do. Is there anything, if people want to help, is there anything that you need that people can donate and bring to us that would help you take care of all these little bunnies that you get?
Well, let's see. I go through enormous amounts of newspaper. When I line the aquariums, I double up the newspaper and then I put a pillowcase and that's their bedding, and I change that bedding twice a day because bunnies pee a lot. And so I go through a lot of newspaper. I can always use newspaper, and I go through pillowcases. I'm washing pillowcases all the time. I could also use gift cards. I go through greens, kale, lettuces. I go through so much green stuff in the summertime. Capabilities Farms right near my house. I go there a lot for my produce. Rory's Market in Dennisport I go to. Shaw's Supermarket and Whole Foods. I just go by kale, parsley, greens all the time. So anything would be great because sometimes it gets to be a lot.
Great. So if you want to help Kristine with her bunnies, you can drop things off at Wild Care on the porch there and just leave a little note that it's for Kristine for her bunnies. And I'm sure that would be a great help for her as she helps to get these little guys back out in the wild. So,
If there's ever a question, please don't hesitate to call Wild Care. I'm happy to answer any questions at any time.
And rabbit season goes from when to
Rabbit
when?
season begins usually middle of March and it goes right through the end of September. And the mother rabbit usually has between 3 to 5 litters per year. So it's going to be busy bunny season for the next couple months. So happy to answer any questions anytime.
Great. Well, thank you, Kristine, and thank you to everyone who cares about these little guys. And let's hope it's a good season for rabbits. Okay.
So,
Bye.
bye.